Well, 2017, what happened back in 2017? Well, you arguably had peak YouTube, Logan Paul, PewDiePie's bridge incident, peak The Odd Ones Out, Storytime Animation was pretty big in 2017. And then the FIA produced these fat-ass cars, which is probably terrible for dirty air because, well, yeah, too much aerodynamics. We'll save that for another video. Look, I'm trying to make this in the summer break, F1 2010's lore. But I want to make a throwback video for every single Grand Prix. So this week's the Canadian Grand Prix. We had a few choices. We had 2008, obviously. We have 2014, Ricciardo's first win. But I ultimately ended up on 2017. So going to the weekend was pretty interesting. Hamilton didn't have the best Monaco Grand Prix. So yeah, Seb was leading the championship by an entire race win. They somehow was still able to bottle that and lose by 50 points. But it's not important. They already made 2 videos on that. So it was going to be a crucial weekend for Mercedes, especially considering Canada looked like it suited the Ferrari a lot more than it suits the Mercedes. It was high downforce like Monaco with very low speed sections. But there was one saving grace for Mercedes. These 2 long-ass straights, which favored the Mercedes engine a lot, could be enough to offset the Ferrari aerodynamics. Hamilton took FP1, Kimi took FP2, and Seb took FP3. So it was looking like, yeah, Ferrari do indeed have the better package again going to the Canadian Grand Prix. So let's see what happens in qualifying. Those knocked out in Q1 was very standard for 2017, and in Pascal Verlaine's final Q1 run, he dipped the grass and spun out. Yeah, this ended his qualifying. Well, it was probably going to end anyway. The Sauber was terrible in 2017. Palmer locks up. Kvyat predicts George Russell's fate 6 years earlier. Fernando Alonso's complaining about his engine. And Nico Hülkenberg makes it into Q3. In Seb's first Q3 run, he runs deep into the hairpin, sets a 1:12.4. And Lewis Hamilton slaps that by 0.6 of a second. And if you think it's just because of the mistake, no, that man went on a tear that lap. He was 0.4 ahead of Bottas as well. Seb's second Q3 run, not his final yet, he did another one after this. 4 thousandths off of Lewis, but Lewis Hamilton slaps his own lap time by another 0.3. And in Seb's final run, he locks up once again and was 0.3 behind Lewis, but this doesn't really matter because he was already 0.4 behind Lewis when he locked up. So Lewis Hamilton gets pole, and this was actually the qualifying session where Lewis Hamilton tied with Ayrton Senna on pole positions. And he was given this race use helmet by Senna, pretty sure from the Lotus days because of the Camel sponsor. So your front 10 for the 2017 Canadian Grand Prix: Lewis Hamilton, Sebastian Vettel, Valtteri Bottas, Kimi Raikkonen, Verstappen, Ricciardo, Massa, Perez, Ocon, and Nico Hülkenberg. Before we start today's video, we're trying to hit 10,000 by July or August, and also 300 on Instagram, because, why not? Anyways, it took long enough, but it's lights out and away we go for the Canadian Grand Prix. And what on earth happened on lap? There are too many things for me to cover in one go, so we're going to look at all of these separately. First, the turn 1 incident between Verstappen, Bottas, and Seb. You can see here, Verstappen gets a brilliant start, the start of all starts. Bottas dips it into turn 1, Vettel gets sandwiched, he has nowhere to go. Verstappen swoops round the outside and hits his front right end plate. Carlos is trying to size up a move on Fernando Alonso on a place which is the complete opposite of an overtaking zone and turns into Grosjean. This happens. Felipe Massa is just a bystander in this and he got victimized. And fun fact, to start Felipe Massa's journey with Williams, he crashes in Canada. And to end it, he crashes in Canada too. I love symbolism. A thing you might have realized is that Seb clipped his front right end plate onto Max Verstappen's rear left tire. And you saw on the onboard, yeah, that was wobbling. Since Ferrari have all the onboards, they'll obviously see this and bring him to the pits. And considering this was during the safety car period, it wouldn't have been very detrimental compared to, if there wasn't a safety car, and he can get an advantage on using 2 compounds. Ferrari did not notice this and they left him out, and immediately on the restart that thing exploded. Well done, Inaki Ueda. And that's not even the worst part, they left him out an extra lap before finally bringing him to fix damages. Wow. What an operation. Well done, Inaki Ueda. Well done. I hope to see you back in Ferrari one day. But there's actually some pretty interesting stuff happening in between Seb's end plate exploding and him coming into the box. Hamilton and Verstappen went side by side going to the wall of champion chicane on the safety car restart. Since Hamilton had the inside line, he was able to push Verstappen a bit, ruin his exit for the main straight. Bottas was going round the outside into turn 1, but Verstappen was able to keep his position. And it's really impossible to go around the outside of Max Verstappen. Like, send me an overtake where someone goes around the outside of Max Verstappen. It's probably impossible to find. Kimi drops it on the exit of 7, goes on the grass, and Sergio Perez goes by him. Man, Kimi actually had a pretty terrible race in this one. We'll get more into that later, I guess. Anyways, after Seb exits the pits, he's now 28 seconds down on Lewis. Oh, this is just magnificent.
What the mental guy? What was that?
I'll show you a mental guy. So this race was actually going pretty calm for a few laps. You know, the top 7 remained the same until lap 11, when Max Verstappen retires. Man, I love the Renault engines. If they had Renault engines in 2021, he wouldn't be a world champion. This brings out the VSC, but what it also does is it brings in Sergio Perez into the podium hunt. He does have a much better engine than Ricciardo does, and if you can just keep it within distance in the middle sector, you can get a pretty good run on the back straight. The funny thing about this is Verstappen actually somehow spotted this Ferrari cap. I think that was the main reason why there's a VSC. How did that even get there in the first place? Lap 14, green flags are dropped, and we have a very interesting battle between Stroll, Van Dorn, Magnussen. In lap 15, Lance Stroll gets up into P10, and he's now in the hunt for his first ever points in F1. But how this happened was pretty sad for Van Dorn. He was slowly falling into the abyss. He was P9 when the green flags are dropped, and now he's down into P12, and never to be seen for the rest of this race again. Thank you, Honda. And with all this going on, Sebastian Vettel has already climbed back into P14, and Sergio Perez is within DRS of Daniel Ricciardo. Lap 17, Stroll gets ahead round the outside of Magnussen before the chicane, breaks early so he doesn't fall with the same trap Verstappen did. Hülkenberg gets a much better run than Stroll, gets ahead of him for a second until Magnussen closes the door. Stroll gets back, Hülkenberg going into turn 1, and the positions remain the same, apart from Van Dorn getting passed by Kvyat. And look at who's joining the fun right now. That's right, Sebastian Vettel came from the depths of Indiana and is back in Montreal. OKC in 7, screw you, Benedict Mathurin. They didn't show Seb's overtake on Hülkenberg, by the way. Instead, they were showing us Ricciardo exiting the pits. And it was really tight between Ricciardo and Perez. Perez nearly gets into P3, completing the overcut, but it doesn't really happen. I think Ricciardo was caught in Alonso's wake. That's why he dropped a lot of positions. And look at the 1-2 spots. Yeah, no one's challenging them in this race. Seb is pretty much kissing Stroll's gearbox at this point. Finally gets a decent run on him on the back straight and gets him going into the final chicane. But look at this dumb TV direction. Why did you cut to Ricciardo overtaking Alonso? This is not even for a position. Alonso hasn't boxed yet. 2 Ferrari overtakes for the price of 1 until you realize that, oh, Seb has to pit again. He hasn't switched compounds yet. Hey, Danny Kvyat's in the points. Oh, hey, Kelly, your future boyfriend's just in the earlier pit boxes. Lewis Hamilton, last 32 laps on the Ultra Soft. And you talk about Perez being a tire whisperer. Lewis was a low-key one. No one really talked about him being a tire whisperer. Esteban Ocon stops after pretty much doing half the race on the Ultra Soft, and he has the opportunity to go for the podium. He has fresher rubber than Raikkonen, Ocon, Perez, and Ricciardo, and he's not too far off from Ricciardo, so the podium is definitely in the cards for Esteban Ocon. And damn it, Kimi, you just had to ruin it. Well, Perez, Ocon, Ricciardo isn't that bad. Perez hasn't gone past Ricciardo, and he has the better power unit. Well, middle sector carrying the Red Bull, I guess. But after 10 laps of nothingness, this is where the action begins. Ocon finally caught up to the back of Sergio Perez, and Perez is still within DRS range of Daniel Ricciardo. They're all in each other's DRS range, and it's a DRS train. And there's also a charging Sebastian Vettel, who also pit a few laps ago.
It's a waste of time, man. Ricciardo is taking off. I want the chance to overtake him. I mean, let us race, man. Please.
Well, you've been stuck behind him for the entire race now, so I don't know what you're talking about, the chance to overtake him when Ocon's clearly going faster than you. I like how for most of the lap, Perez will be out of DRS range, but just in time for the detection point on the hairpin, he will be like just a fringe inside the DRS range. And look how much this is holding up Esteban Ocon. Kimi is going faster all of a sudden. And on lap 60, Perez does get this pretty good chance on Ricciardo, but he just doesn't get close enough, and he doesn't want to try the inside because, well, it's the dirtiest part of the track the entire weekend. He doesn't want to try and lose grip, and I guess Van Dorn's slipstream was helping Ricciardo just a bit. Ferrari initiate team orders to try and put Seb in the battle for P3. And he might actually get it because he has the freshest tires out of everyone right now. And once Perez finally loses out to Ricciardo on the longest DRS straight in the track, all hell breaks loose.
Trying to have a go again, but look, here comes Sebastian Vettel into turn one. Vettel down the inside, forces Ocon wide. Now Ocon goes off the track. Sergio Perez ahead of Vettel, but he's going to come back on the track. Esteban Ocon behind the Ferrari.
And all of this could have been easily avoided if you know how to utilize team orders and let the driver who's clearly going faster by. Oh my gosh. Although this was indeed a brilliant overtake attempt from Seb, you can see how much dirt he's kicking out and look how dusty that track was. Sebastian Vettel with another ballsy move going to the wall of champion chicane and successfully gets into P4. Missed out on the podium, probably wouldn't have happened anyways, but he definitely had the pace to get a podium and potentially fight for the race win if it wasn't for Max Verstappen. And Force India, they lost out on 4 points here, and potentially 7 points because of the podium spot. So you can climb into the grandstands in Montreal, but you've been ignoring me for 3 years straight. Well, please sign something for me this year, Alonso, or F1 teams. Can I go to the paddock? Anyways, after a pretty undramatic race at the front, Lewis Hamilton comes home to win his 56th F1 race and decrease the championship to only 13 points. I think it was 13 or 12, one of those. With Bottas P2, Ricciardo finishing the podium spots, and Sebastian Vettel P4, which should have been an easy P2. And Perez and Ocon do this on the final corner on the final lap just for good measure.
I mean, this is turning into a PR disaster for us. They've just announced Mortal Kombat characters Perez and Ocon.
I don't care what anyone says, bring back celebrity podium interviews. Remember Brian Johnson at the 2014 Bahrain Grand Prix, or Arnold Schwarzenegger at the 2015 Australian Grand Prix? That was really cool, but yeah. Well, that was a pretty fun race, wasn't it? I think it was the best Canadian Grand Prix of the 2017 regulations, either this or 2019. But yeah, it was a really fun race. I didn't watch this at the time because I was only 10 and I wasn't allowed to stay up late for American continent races unless it was like Brazil 2012 where the championship was on the line. But considering my Tifosi status, I probably would have stopped watching after lap 6 anyways. Well, next race, Austria. What should I do for Austria? 2016? 2019? Might want to do 2019 so I don't know, we'll see. But anyways, thanks for watching and goodbye.